Welcome back. Let's start with Discoverers of Chile, and this poem is from Canto General. Canto General, this was published in 1950. So, and we see that the Canto General is a very important and significant work of Neruda. To begin with, was considered as Canto at the very beginning. It was considered as the Canto General of Chile, and later Neruda turned it into the General Canto of America, that is Canto General, that is a general melody of America. Now, what is this canto? Canto General, what is a general tone, the general melody of America? He generalized it for America. Now, this canto means it is something of tending to a crowd of people. Now, this is how we see that a leader of the mass actually communicates with the common people. So, canto is very much like that with which a person, the leader, if you consider the poet as a leader, so the poet is trying to communicate with the common people. So how actually he is speaking with a gathering of individuals, and turns out to be more particular, Neruda, in his Canto General. So how actually in Canto General, that's published in 1950, we see that how Neruda is trying to communicate with the common people with his poems, through his poems, with his particular purposes. Now, at the same time, he was writing poems as well as trying to make the Chilean people aware of the colonial rule, the oppressions that the common mass used to face, as well as remind them of their age-old traditions and histories which were pre-colonial. Now, here we will see that Discoverers of Chile, that a discovery is something that means it existed before, but it was discovered by a particular person or a particular country or a particular group. Now, discover is a word which is much more politically charged than the word invention, because invention is that never existed before, but it was invented by a scientist or a social scientist or a philosopher or a scientist in general who is inventing something which never existed before. But when I'm talking of discovery, it is something which was not seen or not visible to a particular class or to some particular people, and making that particular country or that particular thing or that particular culture or some particular people visible to a group of people or to a group of country or to a class or anything. So making somebody visible to a group or some people, that is very much political. And how actually the very ideology of colonization comes in to this very word discovery and discoverers, one who discovered Chile. Now, regarding the history of Chile, we see that after in 1536 there was a Spanish ruler, a Spanish person. He was a military man. His name was of Almagro. The Spanish force came to Chile in 1536 under the command of Diego de Almagro, but he actually then returned back to Peru because he found the weather not that much suitable for him to stay and rule in Chile. But later he went again to the northern part, that is to Peru again. And some say that after Almagro there came Pedro de Valdivia, who came and made Chile the colony of Spain. And this is how the Chile became the Spanish colony. Now here we will see that Neruda is trying to show us, Neruda is trying to bring forth the very identity of Peru, of Chile as a country, which has a sort of its exclusive existence which existed before the Spanish came as a colonial power. So it was something which has its own exclusive existence of its own, that comprise of its culture, tradition, beliefs, religion, and many more things. So we'll read the poem first. From the north, Almagro brought his crushed ember, and over the territory between the explosion and sunset, he bent day and night as over a chart. Shadow of thorns, shadow of thistle and wax. The Spaniard meeting with his dry figure, watching the somber strategies of the terrain. Night, snow and sand make up the form of my thin country. All silence lies in its long line. All foam flows from its marine bed. All cold covers it with mysterious kisses. Gold burns in its fingers like an ember, and silver illuminates like a green moon its thickened shadow of a sullen planet. The Spaniards, seated by the rose one day, by the olive oil, by the wine, by the antique sky, did not imagine this point of choleric stone being born from under the dung of the sea eagle. Now there are so many things which need a proper discussion. So in the earlier poem, The Way Spain Was, we have seen that Neruda was much more sympathetic, and he is trying to see Spain as his motherland, and he wants to get into the very common life of Spain. He wants to touch the common heartbeats of the Spanish social life. Now here he is again started seeing Spain as a colonial ruler, as a colonial power, and how Chile and the Chilean culture and the Chilean people, they should fight to gain back their old past history that has been disrupted by the colonial intervention. From the north, actually Peru is north to Chile. Now from the north, Almagro brought his crushed ember. So Almagro brought his colonial power, the rule. The crushed ember means that when something gets crushed, that means you are putting some force, power into it to crush it, to grind it. Ember means it's very much it's like in Bengali we say kat koila. So it is burnt coal which you can use again for lighting something, or which you can use as fuels. So it has the potential to get rekindled, to get lighted again. So Almagro came from north, from Peru, and entered into Chile, appropriated Chile, conquered Chile, and over the territory. Territory is a military term that means a land. It has been uncharted, which needs proper mapping. And this charting, this mapping, all these are very colonially powerful words. They have their colonial nuances in them. So a land which is a territory, which is the uncharted territory, the colonial power comes, appropriates that land and charts it. So conquering a country can be taken as charting a country. So when I have conquered a land, suppose a land is suppose it's a land, it is a stretch of land of 1,000 square kilometers. Now when I have been able to conquer 700 square kilometers of that land, then I'm charting that 700 kilometers and calling this that I have conquered this land. Suppose this name of the land is X. So I have conquered X, which is 700 square kilometers. So I'm charting, remapping, restructuring, excluding and including something to rename, to restructure. And all this I'm doing with the colonial power, by exercising my colonial power and I'm doing what? I'm excluding the remaining 300 square kilometers of land which I have not been able to conquer. So that goes to the margins. That is relegated to the margins. So this is how charting is done. Charting is also a sort of colonial instrument with which a colonizer actually reshapes, remodels, restructures, or redefines a land, appropriates. It is a form of appropriation. And over the territory between explosion and sunset, he bent day and night as over a chart. So he used his weapons, bombs, to explore the country first, and then to exploit, appropriate the country. Almagro came from the north to become the ruler, as a colonial ruler. And then he found what? Shadow of thorns, shadow of thistle and wax. So this was a land which was full of thistle. It's a sort of tree where you will find some some needles in that tree. And if in a land there thistle grows, then that land becomes very unfertile. That land lacks the fertility. It loses fertility. The Spaniard meeting with his dry figure. So when they approached Chile, it appeared before them as a dry land. Meeting with his dry figure. So it appeared as a dry figure, as a very old, decrepitude. It's a decrepit old country. There is decrepitude. There is lack of vibrancy. There is lack of life, and many more things. So it appeared a very very uninteresting, lifeless thing, the very land. And that's why Almagro returned back to Peru again, watching the somber strategies of the terrain. So when they strategically mapped the terrain and found that this is not that much interesting, and later when Valdivia came and the later invaders came, they were able to find out the resources that were there in Peru. But Almagro was not successful. Watching the somber strategies of the terrain, they saw the land the land lacks fertility. The land is very unproductive land. They found it very unimpressive, and they returned back. Night, snow, and sand make up the form of my thin country. The Chile is a very narrow strip of land that makes the country. It has the Andes Mountains on one side. On the eastern side, there is Andes Mountain. On the west, there is the Pacific Ocean. So between the coastal area and the mountains, there's a very narrow strip of land which is known as Chile. If you can consult the atlas also to map out how the country looks like. Night, snow, and sand make up the form. So there was snow on one side because of the Andes Mountains, and on the other part there is a coastal area where they find the foam and the sand. The sand make up the form of my thin country. All silence lies in its long line. So the long coastal line, the coast is never silent, but the land is silent. Why? Because this colonial power has silenced the voice of the original inhabitants of Chile. The aboriginals of Chile, they were silenced by the colonial rule. All foam flows from its marine bed. So he says that he gives a very lively and very interesting imagery that if you take up this long thin strip of land, the country Chile, as a face of an old man. So on one side there is the coastal area because of the Pacific Ocean, and in the coast, in the beaches, we find that the beaches are covered with the foam. And Neruda says that it describes the face of an old man having white beard. So old man, this oldness, this decrepitude actually gives a very unimpressive impression, unimpressive picture of a country. But the later invaders found out the minerals in Chile, and then they became interested, and then they here settled permanently to exploit the country, to exercise their colonial power and rule and make Chile a colony in true sense. So all coal covers it with mysterious kisses, gold burns in its fingers like an ember, and then they were able to find the minerals like gold and coal. Coal covers it with mysterious kisses. Then they found out from the mystery, then it was a very much like a mystery to find out the coal mines, then the gold mines. It burns like an ember, and silver illuminates like a green moon, and they were able to find out silver. So the latter invaders found out the coal mines, the gold mines, and the silver mines. Now Chile became a very important place for the colonizers, because now they can dig up money and wealth from the very heart of this country. And silver illuminates like a green moon, its thickened shadow of a sullen planet. The Spaniards, seated by the rose one day, the Spaniards were very powerful because they were the colonizers. They were sitting on the petals of rose, on the rose beds. They were powerful. By the olive oil, by the wine, by the antique sky, because they had antique power. They had a very old empire of so many years. It started from 1492, from the discovery of Columbus. And they were sitting on the bed of rose with olive oil. They have olive oil, they have wine, an antique sky, but they were not aware. They did not imagine this point of choleric stone. So he says that choler is one of the biles that we see in the theory of humor, that choler is the reason if there is an imbalance of this particular bile in a human body, then the man becomes imbalanced. He loses his temper, he or she loses his temper, because choler is the cause of what? Choler is the cause of anger. So he says, Neruda says that though the Spaniards, the Spanish colonizers, they were sitting on the rose beds, they were not aware that there was a sort of grudge that is gathering under their petaled beds, and that is the anger of the colonized people being born from under the dung of the sea eagle. Now there is the Chilean myth that it is believed that the land Chile was born out of the excrement of a bird, the eagle. The land came up from the dropping, the excrement of an eagle. So that was their native myth. So with this particular myth, Neruda actually is trying to connect both the things, that the people of Chile, after being silenced, after remaining silenced for such a long period, being exploited, oppressed by the Spanish colonial rule, now they are getting angry, and there may be chances of their retaliation, and their anger will come out of the land which is born out of the excrement of an eagle, which actually connects their post-colonial resistance to the colonial oppression, which is connecting with their original native tradition. So these two poems are, you read it properly, and if you have any problem, you can call me up anytime. And in the next class, we will do a long poem that is Ode to the Tomato. This is a very interesting poem. We will do that, and I hope to take 3 more classes for 3 poems. This will be very short classes, and after finishing Neruda, if it is possible, and if you want, obviously, then I will start another the remaining essay of Amit Chaudhary. Till then, have a nice time, take care of your health, stay at home, stay safe, and any problem, call me up. Thank you.